Namaste, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Blooming Lotus Healing Channel. My name is Jikara, and I am a spiritual healing facilitator. And today I wanted to talk about really just a topic of maybe conversation for those of you who have been following this channel, or maybe you're new to this channel and you're probably wondering who the heck is Jakara, and why are you doing this channel, like why are you here? And so we'll be diving deep into my story, and I'm going to be sharing some vulnerable parts of me that I feel are important so that you can understand why this channel was created and the type of work that I do. So, if this is your first time here, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel, and to also like and share this video if you feel by the end of this video, that this is something that resonates with you and maybe my story can resonate with someone that you love. I also want to take a moment to thank my supporters, those who are part of the Cosmic Light Activation Group. Thank you so much for being part of my journey and supporting my channel. If you are interested in joining this group, I want to invite you to go into my website, thebloominglotushealing.com, and sign up for my email list, and so that you will know when I will open the doors to this group. This group typically will have a private Telegram channel, and actually, typically, like we have a Telegram channel where I post weekly readings, and I also do once a month a clearing specifically for the group, an Akasha clearing that will support your energetic hygiene and also support any other energies that are at play at the moment, especially if there's any planetary things happening. That Akasha clearings kind of help you with that. So, this is kind of like more of a collective level. So it addresses collective energies that may be at play that could be potentially affecting you. So if you're interested in experiencing that, I definitely want to invite you to join the group. So enough about that. I just kind of wanted to just come in. I'm here just sharing myself, and I just kind of wanted to come in and come in raw. I really don't like to try to do any sort of like editing or any sort of so I stumble in my words, and I like to leave everything in because I want you to really feel into the essence of what I want to share. So today I'm basically just gonna do that. So I kind of wanted to talk about who Jakara is, right? And who is she and what is she trying to do here on this planet, right? And the first thing that I want to mention is that my birth name is actually not Jakara, right? It's a different name. But I recently received my spiritual name on a journey into Sedona. And as I was in the wilderness in Sedona, I received this download of my name and how my name was a big part of this work that I was going to be doing. And this was back in 2021 when I went into this journey on a quest of healing, that it started actually back in 2015. So 2015 was really when the journey started for me, but it kind of intensified back in 2020 into 2021. And in 2021, I felt like there was like this big activation for me to really come in and serve and be of service. It was a calling that was really coming through for me for the longest time, but I never really stepped into my power until I felt comfortable enough to actually come out and create these videos and create the channel, and and actually put myself out there as a spiritual healer and really cement the essence of who are meant to be expressing on this planet. And of course, for a lot of us, 2020 was a big year for us. It was a big year of transformation, of questioning, of rehashing, of pivoting, and reconsidering our lives, and really allowing ourselves to realign with our soul. But that wasn't always the case for me, and I kind of wanted to share my story with you because I feel that when you know where I come from and you know the pain points that I've been through, I feel it helps you understand what is it that I do, and who is it that I'm here to serve, right? And the first thing that I can say is, starting when I was young, when I was 3 years old, my mom and my dad got divorced, and they actually were having trouble, while she was pregnant with me. And he was quite abusive and quite a very difficult person to be around. And so she couldn't leave him at the moment, because she was scared of him. But I don't know if she was really scared. Maybe I'm putting words into her mouth, but I sense that that was the case for her. And so she basically decided that she was going to stay. And then up until when I was 3, then that's when they finally divorced or separated and divorced. And it was basically because it was, my dad being not being not honoring the relationship, not honoring the sacred union that they had. He ended up, cheating on her and going off and being with another woman who had a child around my age too, who happened not to be her child, his child, but he ended up, raising her. And that was a big wound for me, to observe how he just kind of cast me aside, put me aside, and he embraced this other child who I was so confused. Like for me, it was like very painful. So that was like a huge pain point for me. Another pain point for me was the fact that my mom comes from, from a lineage of women. I'm from South America, from Venezuela. I was born in Caracas. My family on my mother's side, they're from the east side of the country, and they're from either the islands or or close to the beach, that type of the coast type of area. And so there's simpletons, people of countrymen and women, and a lot of deep wisdom that they carried. And so but there was like this, in essence, my mom wanted a better life. So a lot of people do that, they leave the country, right? Especially my country, like that feels like that's something that happens a lot. Like people from tribes or from the country want to seek a better life, so they go to the capital, which is Caracas. And that's where she went, and she was seeking a better life. And so she really had this, in a way, in essence, she wanted to become better. And so in a way, she kind of disconnected a little bit from that. And she was trying to really mold, her life in a different light. And in turn, that's how she molded my life, and she gave me a good life. She even though she was a single mother and she was divorced, and in that time it's a big stigma. I always had food on the table, I always had clothing, I always had a roof over my head, I always had I was going to school, so all of that was covered for me. However, it was all the physical stuff, right? But when it came down to emotional support and the love and the presence, that was something that was unavailable for me, because she was so busy, right? She was so busy trying to survive, and then she was also dealing with generational traumas that had to do with the women in the family, being abused, or going through sort of like gaslighting, and not being seen as as they mattered, and that type of wounding. And so like she kind of went into this hyper energy of like, I'm gonna go into the doggy dog world and show the men that I can do this, because I'm sorry. And she was very successful in her job. And so imagine, and I'm giving you this image so you can see the essence of what I was really experiencing growing up. It was this woman who was really trying to be strong in her own, and earn her money, and and show the world that she can make it. And she did, and she was very successful for a while. And after struggles, we did struggle, but she did reach a pinnacle point of her life. And then at that point, she got very sick when I was 6. And that was the first time in my life that I actually I feel like it was an initiation, right? Like my initiation happened very, very early in my life, like quite literally in my mom's womb, when she was basically experiencing these very difficult times with my dad. That's how I feel my initiation was. But then I feel like there was like almost like a secondary initiation, and I feel like that was my first time that I could say that was the dark night of the soul, which was when I was only 6 years old, and my mom almost died, and I didn't have anyone else. Like my dad wasn't around. Remember, he wasn't around. So for me, it was kind of like, wow, like what am I gonna do now? And so I was really scared. And I remember, sitting on the floor floor, you're looking up, into the ceiling, like into the sky, and asking God, what's going to happen with me, and just kind of feeling this wave of energy coming through and embracing me. And my mom was almost like, she was actually declared clinically dead at one point, when she got sick. She was actually hospitalized and her lungs collapsed. And at that moment, when she was declared clinically dead, she actually came to me. Her spirit came to me. That was the first time I've ever experienced anything that was beyond anything that I could explain. And I was just kind of like questioning it. I was like, okay, is this, the ego, right, wants to kind of come in. And like, people of course don't talk about this openly, but that was the first time I ever saw, something that was beyond explanation, right, in my life. And at that point, she came to me and she said, everything's going to be okay. And I knew everything was going to be okay. It was really interesting, when I felt that energy. And so, and the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because this really is pivotal in regards to the reason why I do what I do, right? So because our relationship was so complicated, our relationship was complicated because we're dealing with baggage, that she was, carrying from this and other lifetimes, of course. And then the generational baggage that comes from my grandmother and my great grandmother and my great great grandmother and so on. And not only that, it was playing a part in our relationship, but it was also her own journey of experiencing really difficult times. And then on top of that, we are dealing with also, in essence, this really interesting time when she was not like, she was never really available, like, because she herself, her inner child, was never acknowledged and seen and loved and supported in the way that it needed to be supported. And I truly believe that there's this transition, not only from the inner child and being in the inner child, but also the inner adolescent. And I don't think that inner adolescent was supported either. So he or she is stunted inside this adult body with a child, and trying to manage, herself with a child, right, and survive. And so that was a very good opportunity for really a lot of abusive behavior to be expressed. It was a breeding ground for that. And that was the complication with my relationship with her, and it was very painful. I um when I was gaslighted throughout my life, saying, well, everyone does this, this is how it is. And, this is how we do things, we just, beat the children. And, and it was just so aggressive. And I never understood, and I remember being scared of her. And I remember just really being so confused about that. And her just having those lash out moments. And then on top of that, going to her, remembering these things, and then going to her, and she, her playing it down and denying it and saying like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But it was. And so I had to, sit with that for the longest time. And then so all of this anger started brewing inside of me, right? And then, fast forward into, high school, middle school, I have my first love, and who later on played a part in my life, as my first husband. And so here is my first love. I meet him, and he was definitely someone who was in an abusive, you know uh, relationship with his mother too. And so we kind of bonded over that. And but he himself was also troubled, and I was troubled. And so, but we were bonding over that wound, because we felt like nobody else could understand us. Fast forward into becoming 17 years old, and with my first love, we ended up breaking up. He ended up being like super mean or whatever, that something happened. And then later on, that was when I was about 15 years old, then I meet for the first time, I have my first person that I am intimate with. And I end up getting pregnant. And in that process, I asked him, I was like, are you going to show up for me? And he basically told me, no, if you have this child, I will not be in your life, and you're gonna do this on your own. And that was not what I wanted, because I always wanted my dad, right? And so, going through that experience, and then saying, giving, like, he basically gave me two options. He said, you either have the child and not see me again, or let go, and of this child, and that's it. And so, I went for the second option. And last minute, when we were at the place, I basically changed my mind. And well, I was already there, at the place. And actually, there it was actually illegal, right? Like, in my country, to do that. It's not like here, like, it's actually legal and you can go and it's safe. Over there, you cannot go to doctors that are underground. And so here I am, like, on the in the space, lying back, and I'm like changing my mind. Like, I have like this alarm system going in, like, no, 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 don't do this. And I was like, no, no, I don't want to do this. And then he went out and spoke to, at the time, my boyfriend. And he was, older than me, like about a couple years older. So I was still considered a minor at 17. And then I don't know what was the conversation, but then he proceeded. And so, what they did is they put me to sleep, because I was crying so hard and I didn't want that to happen. And they put me to sleep. And then after that, it was that violation, right, of my body, right? And so that was very traumatic, right? So when I tell you I've been through trauma, listen, like, this is it. And I'm spilling my guts here, really, to help you understand why I created this channel, why I became the healer that I am, um, why I want to bring healing into the space, into the world, because I've been through the pain, and that was traumatic, right? Like, and I know that this may be triggering for some of you, and I want to invite you to really stay with me here, because I do have a message for you. There's, at the end of this, but, so after that, I went through, that was very, very hard for me. So I went through this process of grief. I was grieving my unborn child, and I was feeling guilt and shame and all of it. And I was like scared. My mom didn't know that all this stuff was happening. I told her like 2 years after or something. And she shamed me, instead of, like, of course she shamed me. And so that was like, that whole thing happened. Right. And for me, it was just kind of like one of those things where I just felt that my world ended, and that I wasn't worthy, and that I couldn't keep going, and I wanted to die. Basically, I just didn't want to continue going, in this journey. And I was like, why is this all happening? Why does this pain have to happen? Why is my dad not wanting to be in my life? Why is he denying me his presence? Why am I being denied a loving mother? Like, I was so angry, and I was in this full victim mode, right? And then that, and operating from that space. So as I was operating from that space, I also was, hoping and seeking, relationships with others, like with men. And so I was a serial monogamist, and I was, going one relationship after another, trying to feel worthy, trying to seek the worthiness within me from a man. I wanted a man to tell me, yes, you're worthy, and I needed that so badly, because again, I am coming from all this baggage. But all I found along the way was pain after pain after pain after pain, because I made all of these decisions based on my pain, based on my lack, right? And so, the reason why I'm saying this is, all of these things have a common thread. And the common thread is relationships, interactive relationships with people, interactions with people, right? And when I, fast forward into 2014, my 2013, uh, I am connected with my now ex-husband, who, remember I told you, my first love. He was my first love, and I thought that, he was my twin flame, and it had to be, because, we haven't seen each other in so long, and now he's coming into my life, and, we're meant to be together, and, like, oh my gosh. And even though deep inside I knew he didn't love me, if I'm really honest with you, like, I'm just being honest now, looking back, I'm like, I knew he didn't love me, but I didn't want to believe that, because I wanted that so bad. I was just so attached to the idea of being with him that I just didn't care about the warning signs that I was receiving from spirit. So we get married, and he was, now looking back, I'm like, okay, he was definitely my greatest teacher. But at the moment, it was painful. He taught me through a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. And he himself, again, like I mentioned, he did have traumatic experiences growing up, and so he came in with his set of baggages and things that were hurting him. And I didn't have the capacity to hold space for him, and he didn't have the capacity to hold space for me. So in a way, I did fail him. I failed him in loving him and accepting him as he was, as he is. And that acceptance was something that I wasn't able to give him, and he wasn't able to give me either. So that created a mirror effect of lack of acceptance and just frustration, and then eventually became a domestic violence situation where he almost tried to kill me. And that's when I want to say, the dark night of the soul for me was very long. I feel like it got intensified. It kind of started when I was 6. It got intensified, a little bit intensified when I was 17. And then by the moment, I was, it was kind of increasing on every year. And by the moment I get to my ex husband, that was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. And at that moment, there was one night he got triggered, and he basically wanted to kill me that night. And for whatever reason, at that moment, even throughout our relationship, I remember feeling this soft voice coming through and guiding me. And I remember that night, this voice guided me. And the only thing that I said was, at that moment, because I felt like I was gonna, like, I knew, I saw it in his eyes, he really wanted to end my life. And I felt the energy of death, um imminent, like right there. And I said, if this is it, if this is where I die, I told spirit, I said, at the moment, I said, please God, please let it be fast, and let me come to you fast. I'm done. Like, I don't want to suffer anymore. Please just let it be fast, and I just kind of surrendered to death at that moment. And when I did that, something really interesting happened. Um, he ended up like throwing up out of nowhere. And I was like, whoa, what's happening here? And this voice immediately started speaking, into my awareness, and telling me what to tell him so I could calm him down. And I did. And at that moment, when I was guided to do this, um, I finally convinced them, and I was able, we were able to go back. We were actually homeless at the time, and we were living in my car. And so we were parking the car by a church. And so I convinced them, let's go back to the church, and let's go back to church in the morning the next day, because it was going to be a Sunday morning. And at that moment, when I went there, I spoke to the pastor, and I told him, I really need you to retain him here. I need to leave, and I don't know what's going to happen with him, but if I don't leave, I know I'm going to die soon, And because he saw, like, I was, I was beat up. I had like bruises on my face, and it was really, really bad. So I ended up leaving. And after I left, I I ended up, calling a friend, a childhood friend of mine, and she received me in her home. And that's when the deeper depression. I was kind of going downward spiral into rock bottom. And that was my rock bottom. I could barely get up and take a shower. I could barely do anything. I was in such a painful time of my life. And all I knew was to keep taking one more breath. That's all I could handle at that moment, just to focus in the present moment and to take a breath at a time. That's all I could do. And it was so deep, the pain, because it was like the culmination of all of the pain, all of the suffering that I've had throughout my life, and coming into the space of like, who am I? and why have I like allowed, like how did this happen, right? And so, moving through the shame and the pain and the insecurity and all of the negativity around that. And so, even though it was this really pivotal point of pain, there was also magic happening at that moment. And the best way that I can tell you the magic happened was when the voice inside of me started getting stronger and stronger and stronger, where my guides were coming through and helping me, and they were showing up for me, and opportunities started coming my way. So I end up finding a job at a call center, and I'm starting my life again. This was back in 2015, and I end up moving into this tiny little apartment 15 minutes away from the beach. Kid you not. And it was amazing. And I was living in this little tiny apartment, and I was, thanks to the help of beautiful friends that came to my rescue to support me in this process of transition into my place. And they were friends that I met right there and then. There were new people in my life. There were angels on earth that came to my rescue. Through them, God consciousness was really moving through and helping me. And long story short, I end up in this space, and that's when I started my deep healing. And mind you, I was introduced to cannabis, to Mother Mary, for the first time back in 20, well, actually back when I was 30 or 29. And I had it once, and I was like, okay. I wasn't really into it. And then, but then later again, it came into my awareness, and no one taught me how to do this, right? Like, no one taught me, hey, you gotta do this, right? But I started this healing journey with cannabis by setting intentions, and I got a bunch of paint. I had some warped records that a friend of mine gave me, and I had this I would listen to meditation music, and I would create this like ceremonial almost type of experience for myself, to where I would, excuse me, like have like the incense going, and I would have, like the nice candlelight, and I would have like the meditation music, and I would be, sitting with the paint and painting, and just allowing myself to be in that repetitive mode. And as I was going through that, I was meditating, right? And so a friend of mine calls it meta painting. So anyway, so I was meta painting, right? I was meditation with painting. I did not know what I was doing at the time, but it was all intuitive. It was all intuitively happening for me. And as I was doing this, I was releasing. I was connecting deeper to parts of my subconscious that wanted to come forth, and really feeling into the emotions that were stored behind the scenes that I wasn't able to tap into, because I was in survival mode before, right? And so as I was doing this, the interesting thing about this whole thing is that I start releasing so much through the intention of healing with what I like to call Mother Mary. And why am I saying this is because my journey hasn't been linear, right? Like, I didn't get here to where I'm at now, where I'm doing spiritual response therapy. I hold space for people. I can hold, ceremony for people. I can do so many beautiful things for people now that, back then I was all like, I started doing for myself. The reason why I can do this for others is because I started doing this for myself. I started seeking, and the reason why I started doing that back in 2015 was because I knew that I needed to heal. All of this stuff that was happening in my life, it was happening really for me, to direct me to this place, right, which is beautiful and bountiful and abundant, and full of love and full of compassion. But at the same time, I needed to really be able to receive myself fully, and I haven't done that, this entire time. All these years that were passing, I wasn't holding space for myself. I was just trying to get someone to do that for me. But no one really had the capacity, because they haven't done that for themselves. So the thing that I was seeking, that love that I was seeking outside of me, really was inside of me the whole time, right? It was inside of me the whole time. And I was thirsty for my love. I was thirsty for me, for my essence, for my compassion, my forgiveness, my freedom. I needed that, right? I needed my own permission. But see, I wasn't seeing that. I was seeing that, oh, it has to come from outside of me. Finally, in this journey of self connection and self awareness and self exploration, I go through this process of healing so much through my sacral. So I go through this sacral journey of healing with painting, and then also connecting to my sacral through connecting to my body and my pleasure, and connecting to giving myself permission to feel the pleasure that was denied to me, not only to me but to the generation of women in my family that were denied the pleasure of feeling pleasure in anything, because that's not the good girl, right? So I allowed myself to be the bad girl, to be in that space. Bad girl, which is not really the bad girl, but I gave myself permission to be her, right? And to recognize that once I was in her, in that essence, that there was nothing bad about her, that there's nothing but beauty and power and that Shakti energy, really connecting to her, to the sacred, space of the sacral, right, which is sacred, right, and the sacred goddess, right, like really connecting to that essence of the feminine, which was what was coming through the painting, right. And so I did that for a few years, and then later on, I end up traveling to Mexico and getting deep activations at Teotihuacan, and I did not know what I was doing, but I just knew that I had to go there. And in that process, when I was living there, I started connecting to soul family, um, starting with a former twin flame of mine. And we did some deep dive into our journey, and our journey was very difficult, and there was so much pain that I had to maneuver through, but there was so much healing that happened also with this beautiful friend of mine. And so and yes, you can have a former twin flame. We don't Our twin flames don't have to stay twin flames forever, just so you know. So anyway, so with that said, what at the time I did not know, but I was in this journey of connecting to the Akashic records, and doing readings, and I started doing that, and I started connecting to people and doing Reiki, and all of these different things. It really started coming into my awareness, and I was immersing myself into this knowledge and allowing myself to really call in what I really was meant to be doing. And one of the things that I really loved about this whole journey is that I knew that I was here to serve. That never was something that I was in any shape or form unaware of. Like, that was always something that was in the forefront, but I just did not know how that was going to happen, right? And so, fast forward to today, I get introduced to these beautiful groups of women, and I go into the essence of dream weaving and connecting to sisters, and healing the sister wound, and connecting to other strong women, and receiving the nourishment from these women and the support, and allow myself to shine bright and be supported by other women in that essence, and really feeling that beautiful unconditional love from everyone, right? And so and the humanity of that, right? So, like, really understanding how that humanity of the relationships play a part, in their beautiful, they're a beautiful tool for us to learn. And so, with that said, that's the reason why I was inspired in the past year and a half, actually, to connect to deeper into doing work with relationships, and really focusing on the twin flames and the soul families. Because when I started working in my records, when I got introduced to SRT, to spiritual response therapy, first as a client, and then now as a practitioner, when I got introduced as a client, it was like, whoa, like, this is amazing. But then when I got to the other side as a practitioner, I was like, whoa, even more amazing. And what I love about spiritual response therapy, or SRT, is that it's very expansive. So once you get into it, you really don't stay in the same spot. Like, spirit wants you to expand. And so I started receiving downloads back in July of last year, about certain aspects of the soul that are related to the soul relationships. And so then now, I have created the system called the Beloved Method. And this is the reason why I'm here. So I'm just gonna wanted to, I guess, like culminate into the space is that this is what I am meant to be bringing forward, is the awareness of the relationships that we have here on earth, that are on a higher perspective, on the akashic level perspective, and how, all of this experience of understanding came from a place of pain. I mean, I shared basically a long-winded, and I could go into so many more details because there are so many more things that happened in my life that were traumatic, but I can't really, I mean, describe everything. I would be here for hours talking about every single thing, but I kind of gave you some general things that happened. But just know that in all of those experiences, there was an interaction with a person. There was something, and a lot of times it was. I discovered later on it was karmic. And so when we start seeing our relationships from that higher perspective and start questioning why these things are happening, could this potentially be something karmic? Could this potentially be something that goes beyond this lifetime? And we start feeling into that, and we start recognizing that we are here to experience and to learn, in both ways, not only through pain. I just happen to learn through pain on this lifetime. You can also learn through joy, right? And I feel like I'm transitioning now into the joy part of my life, because I've been through so much pain. Now I'm ready to experience the learning experience through joy. But especially if you're coming from those pain points in your relationship, you have some relationship that is difficult, and that doesn't mean that that I don't have difficult relationships. Even my relationship with my mother continues to be complicated. But guess what? After I've done all the work and connected to all of the understandings of why things happened, I have this peace in my heart. I have this sense of peace in my heart that I don't have all these energies like playing a game and keeping me in this like suffering energy. And even with my mother-in-law, like that, there's struggles with her too. And although I know that she herself has her own experiences and her own source of pain points that are really the ones that are operating, doesn't mean that there's no interaction, that there's like the interaction is not difficult. It is. But at the same time, it's just one of those, is like, you know what, it is difficult, but there is something in here that I'm learning. So I'm like allowing myself to stay in that essence of, what is it that I'm learning? Because, she is my teacher as well, right? Just as like my mother is my teacher as well. So, all of these people that have come into my life in some shape or form, they have taught me something. They have left behind a token of wisdom. So I want to end this video with telling you that, or inviting you to see in your life those difficult relationships, the relationships that you had. Maybe you have had some really difficult relationships and you want to learn how to clear that, or maybe you want to work with me, right? I want to invite you to go into my website, thebloominglotushealing.com. I do have a class coming up in May. And it's going to be a 6-week class program that we're going to be covering the beloved method. I'm going to be teaching you how to tap into your Akashic records, how to clear your energies, how to connect to the type of soul relationship that you have with that person, and get that, and be in that awareness, and be in the awareness of the purpose of why they're in your life, and kind of like really be in that understanding, so that you don't have to be like wondering, like, and then you don't have to hold on to these energies. You can just let go and like consciously be in that energy, because right now we're in the age of empowering people, right? So like, yes, of course, you come in and you can work with me, but I want to also empower you to really see that you have the capability to clear these things for yourself. You have the capability to overcome this stuff. And there are tools out there that can help you with that, right? So, but first we have to work on ourselves, right? Like we have to be honest with ourselves and say, well, you know what? Like I have had some things, that I've been dealing with and I really need to overcome. So I kind of want to invite you to join me, and to understand that, I see you. I get it. It's difficult, but there's a way for you to move through this on your own and have the support as well, of your guides, of your higher self. Like you are so supported. You have no idea how supported we are in the ethers. It's incredible. Like we are so supported and loved. It's beyond our imagination. And how unconditional love is. Unconditional love is so big, sometimes it makes me want to cry at how beautiful it is, right? But anyway, so I just kind of wanted to share this with you because if there's anything you can take away from this video is, know that these experiences have a learning essence for you. What is that for you? Give yourself permission to journal about this, right? Give yourself permission to explore this outside of the victimization and inside the student hat, right? Put on the student hat and see what is in here with me, because absolutely everything goes back to self. Everything. Every single experience goes back to self. I know some people say, well, I just, whatever happens, happens. But everything has a meaning. Everything. Whether we want to accept it or not, it does. And I'm here to tell you and remind you of that. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to, again, thank you. I want to invite you to share and like this video. And I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet. And I want to invite you to really come in and join the Cosmic Light Activation membership if you haven't yet. I want to thank my supporters that are already part of it. And if you want to join the Cosmic Light Activation membership, or if you want to take the Beloved Method class, please come on in. Go into the bloominglotushealing.com and sign up for my email list, or sign up for the class. It's already there on the workshops, already available for you to sign up. And I look forward to seeing you there. Love you. Thank you for your time, for your energy. Your support means everything to me. It really does. And namaste.